Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir. How you doing?
Good
We're doing
evening.
very well. I'll let you do introductions, Cantana, and then we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. Well, good evening. I think we can go ahead and go. Yeah, I'm getting the cue to go ahead and cue this thing up. So first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and say good evening to everyone. My name is Cantana Thomas. I'm with the Orange County Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Initiative. I serve on the Committee of Marketing and Communications. Tonight, we're going to have a candid conversation with our community. This is part of the Kaleidoscope series. When you think of a kaleidoscope, here it is. You look in one end and you have a unique picture that comes out on the other. And depending on how you look at the kaleidoscope, the picture might be different from everyone, but the beautiful thing about it is it all comes back in a full circle. And so our goal with this Kaleidoscope series is to have these very different conversations, but to bring it back into a full circle with our community. Without further ado, I would like to go ahead and introduce that of Mayor Jerry L. Demings. Hello, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I'm honored to be here with all of you tonight, those of you who are on the faculty and students there at Rollins College. This is my hometown here, and so it's just a pleasure for me to be serving as Orange County Mayor, the fifth elected mayor in Orange County. So we have not had a countywide elected mayor, but for the last 30 years or so. Prior to that, there was not a countywide elected mayor. We have now about 1.4 million people who are permanent residents of Orange County. And in the last decade, according to the 2020 census data, our county's population grew by 25% during that period of time. We were about 1.1 million, and we are now over 1.4 million. We're a 1,000 square mile county. Of that 1.4 million people, over 870,000 or so of them do not live in any city. They live in unincorporated Orange County, and for those who live in the unincorporated area of the county, I am their only mayor. For those who live within the cities, they actually have two mayors in the cities. Those who serve as the mayor of the city, such as Mayor Buddy Dyer, but they also have me as the county mayor because the county provides services inclusive of the cities. And so it's a humbling experience for me to serve in this role today, presiding over a budget. We did a budget amendment just last evening with the Board of County Commission, and our budget is now over $6.9 billion. And so we get to make many decisions on behalf of the residents of our county.
Thank you so much for that informative intro, sir. Who we have with us today, we will be engaging our college students. These students that we have this evening are a part of Rollins College Black Student Union. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce each one of them in no particular order. We have a Jaheem Morris, who's on the line. We have Jelana Mitchell, who's with us. We have Ayana Mattis, Marcus Davis, Hakeem Mitchell. We have Vernon Andrews and Shania Thomas. Their advisors who are with us this evening would be Robert Whetstone and Tisa Mays. Tisa Mays, welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening.
All right, we're glad to be here with you.
So to get this
in the room with me, by the way, I have one of my special assistants, Ms. Rhonda Robinson, who you may see pop into the camera lens from time to time. She has assisted in coordinating this. And then we have another one of my special assistants, Mr. Mark Espesso, who is here in the room. And then we have our technician, Mr. Knowledge Allah, who will make certain that we continue to stay live this evening.
And we cannot go on without thanking Sam for being able to assist us, Sam Vega for being able to bring all this together as she does participate on the MLK committee, being able to spearhead this event. So to be able to move things right along, we have some questions that the students have submitted. These questions are really to engage to see where we are. One of the things that Mayor, you speak on was wanting Orange County to be innovative, but also be for tomorrow. And so I think, being able to see their questions, we're going to go ahead and start with potential questions from that of Jelana Mitchell. One of her questions is, being in such a superficial position, are there times where you feel like there's too much? And if so, then what measures do you take to deal with these stresses and hold your head high when people are constantly looking for answers?
Well, let me just say this to you. I think in life, in order to get to a point where perhaps you're as good as you possibly can be, it takes a combination of two things. One is you have to be well educated on the subject matters that you deal with. Number two, you have to be well experienced. This is my 41st year of public experience. And so I started out on the streets of Orlando as a police officer with the Orlando Police Department 41 years ago. Prior to that, I was a financial accountant and worked with a consulting firm. And so I transitioned from the accounting and the financial services world into law enforcement. And through a significant career of 38 years or so in law enforcement, I then became the Orange County mayor. So I say all of that to say this. It is the sum total of all of those life experiences that adequately prepared me for the rigors of the job that I have today. And so there's no substitute in life for experience. And so I got to this point after going through a number of things that allows me to have a certain humility in the job that I do every day. That's something that my mother always taught me, was to be humble, not to be arrogant, but to be humble in the work that you do on behalf of other people. Because in life, it's not about me, it's about the service to other human beings. And so that's what I get my greatest reward from. And sometimes, yes, the rigors of the job are demanding. But because I've been through some things, I stay focused. Our AME bishop once said to me, a female bishop, and in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, there were not many women. It was not until really about 1990 that the African Methodist Episcopal Church elected its first female bishop. Well, one of the bishops said to me, a female bishop said to me once, Bishop Carolyn Gidrich, she said, in life, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice, and it's real short. She said, pray first, aim high, and stay focused. So when I go through the rigors of the job, when I have my ups and downs, as a man of faith, I have a healthy prayer life, and I dream big, and then I stay focused. So when there are these things that perhaps may knock me off course for a period of time, I remember to stay focused on what is important, what is truly important.
Thank you so much for that answer, sir. As we move forward, our goal is going to allow the students to actually ask the questions. So to do so, Jelani, if you could go ahead and ask your second question that you have submitted for us this evening.
Okay, I'll ask it. How do you deal with criticism in your position? For example, if many colleagues or people of Florida disagree with your decisions on what to do with our state?
I deal with criticism, and I try to deal with it in a healthy way. First off, I realize that I'm imperfect. None of us are perfect. And so because of the different roles that I have held over the many, many years of being a professional, I've grown to respect the differences. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, he once said that no culture can live if it seeks to be exclusive. Respect for honest differences is a healthy sign of progress. So for me, when people may disagree with the position that I take, that's okay, because I then have the opportunity to perhaps communicate more effectively with them, to engage them in dialogue or debate. And in some cases, they may never agree with the position that I take, but I still do that with the number one goal in mind, that I serve the people. The decisions that I make are supposed to not be about Jerry Demings necessarily, but it's supposed to be about you. I'm supposed to make decisions on your behalf, and as your elected leader, I'm supposed to make those decisions that will broadly be of benefit to the overwhelming majority of people. And sometimes in life, when you study statistics there in college, you know this thing called the bell curve. The majority of people are somewhere in the middle. And so that's who I preside over and try to make decisions for. There are going to always be some people who may be far left. There may be people who are far right, outside of the bell curve. But when I work with that 80% or so that's in the middle, then I have truly made the decisions likely in the best interest of the people that I'm elected to serve.
Thank you so much for that. Next, I would like to go ahead and bring to the panel discussion would be Marcus Davis. Marcus, would you go ahead and lead with your questions, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. And the first question I have for you is, talk a little bit about your goal to make Orange County the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. As a leader, how do you both meet the goals of the community while also representing and also preparing it for the future?
So I heard the first part of your question was about, as a leader, how do I try to ensure that the vision I have to make Orange County the experimental prototype community of tomorrow a reality? The second part of the question, I may not have heard that clearly. There was a little bit of feedback going on there. So, but let me take the first part, and then I'll come back to you to offer some clarity. In terms of why did I try to come up with a vision that I thought people could understand and see? As a teenager here, I worked at Walt Disney World. I started at Walt Disney World in 1974, working in characters. I was in costume there at Disney, and that was a pretty tough job, wearing those costumes and the gear that you have on there. But I had the opportunity to hear a video when I was going through training that Walt Disney himself talked about what he was trying to do in the world that he was living in. What he said he was trying to do was create a very, very special place on planet Earth that all human beings will want to live, a place where there was this convergence of cultures from around the world, a place where there was entertainment, where there were foods from around the world, where there would be clean energy, where there would be no crime, where there would be a place where there was a multimodal system of transportation. And so if you go to Disney today, there's a monorail, there's a steamboat, and various other modes of transportation that's on display there. He also said that as we live on planet Earth and as the human race continues to grow, we have to be good stewards of the land that God has created and provided to us, and not be destructive to that land, and protect the environment that we're in. So he was all about clean energy. So what Walt Disney did, he coined this term, Epcot. So Epcot, the EPCOT, really stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. It was a futuristic place where innovation and technology all comes together for the reasons that I have already enumerated to you. And so to me, it is that place on planet Earth that we are trying to create in the broader community at large here within Central Florida, within Orange County. We're trying to create that place where all people, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their culture, regardless of their gender, regardless of the race, where they can come together and live freely in a place that everyone will want to live in. It is that place where it is a very special place on planet Earth. And so for me to try to articulate what we're trying to do with Orange County, it is the personification of the Epcot vision that Walt Disney contemplated for himself when in the late 50s he decided to look around the country, to look around the world at a place where there was an abundance of land that had great weather and an opportunity to build after he had built Disneyland in California that was somewhat constrained by the environment around it. He said, I wanted open land. And so he landed here in Florida and said, that is the place where I want to build Walt Disney World. And so that has been the signature place now for Orlando and metropolitan Orlando and Orange County and Florida and even the nation as the #1 tourist destination in North America. So that's what we're trying to do. Keep in mind that futuristic community that we are trying to build here that will not only serve us in the here and now, but will serve us in decades from now, that will serve your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. It is that world that we are trying to build and perfect here.
Very good, sir. And Marcus, and if I don't mind, it sounded like he did answer the second part of that question where you were saying, as a leader, how do you both meet the goal of the community you're representing while preparing for the future? I really feel that his answer really embodied that. And if you do as well, go ahead and ask your second question at this time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that awesome answer. The second question I have is, how can the people of Orange County, from business leaders to school teachers to students, promote successful diversity and inclusion in their environments moving forward?
In order to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, it requires intentional action. It will require visionary leadership. To me, this is how I define a visionary leader. That is a person who anticipates the need for something before it's needed, and they take action in a timely manner. So for me, I try to anticipate what this community would need when I'm no longer here, but take action in a timely manner to prepare for that community. And so that's why I say you have to be intentional about it. So in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as much as it is about defining what that really means, in order to understand what that really means, you have to also define what it does not mean. Having lived through a period of where in this country, blacks and people of color, women, did not have an equal seat at the table to make decisions for things that were impacting their own lives. As a descendant of slaves, I'm the great-great-grandson of slaves. Now, my parents lived to be pretty elderly. My father, I just visited a few minutes ago. He's 99 plus years old. He's in a assisted living facility, a 2-minute walk away from my office. So I get to run over there and visit with him from time to time. His mother was born in 1895 and she died in 1998. And so that's my grandmother. So my grandparents were born in the late 1800s. So my great-grandparents were born around 1870. They were born free just after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1865. So my great-great-grandparents were born enslaved. And so that's who I am. And so I understand my history. I understand the discrimination that they endured. I understand some of their own discrimination that I endured. But during my era, when I graduated from Florida State University, I got my first degree from Florida State University in 1979, and I got my second degree in 1980. And I began my professional career. When I began that career, there were people who I worked with who did not look like me. who had never had a relationship with a person of color. And so from that, it was as much about trying to share with them, learn from them who they were, albeit I graduated from Florida State University in a fairly large class, predominantly white institution. I went to a mostly black high school. I graduated from Jones High School here in Orlando, but I went to an integrated junior high school is what we called it at the time. We were bused, some of the first students to go to Memorial Junior High School. And so playing football and sports created an opportunity for me to play with people who didn't look like me. And there were some challenges there. In my lifetime now, I've been the first in many instances. I was the first black police chief here in Orlando. When I came to work here for Orange County government in 2002, I was the first black director of public safety here for Orange County. When I got elected sheriff here in Orange County in 2008, I was the first black sheriff elected in Orange County, only the third black ever elected in the state of Florida to the office of sheriff. And then I'm the first black Orange County mayor. All of that are first within my lifetime. So did I have to sometimes fight to ensure that I was treated fairly? Have I had to make certain that we will fight to ensure that other people who don't look like me have a seat at the table? Absolutely. But I learned to be intentional about it. It has been said that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So I've always had a plan to ensure that I was able to compete, sometimes in a discriminatory world that I was living in. I was able to compete by investing in myself, by working hard, by getting a good education, and then by doing the work that I was entrusted to do, taking the promotional exams and doing well on them, so that if the opportunity knocked, I had an opportunity to get there. So now that I'm in this role where I make hiring decisions, I make appointment decisions, I'm intentional about hiring and promoting for diversity. I'm intentional about ensuring that we not only deal with this a few days out of the year when we celebrate Dr. King's birthday, or we remember his tragic death. What I said in Orange County, I want this to be something that is part of our culture, our organizational culture. And so every day, I want my staff to be focused on this. And so we created the Dr. Martin Luther King initiative here that Cantana and Ms. Vega are part of, and others are part of here in Orange County, where we want to have a focus on this on a day-to-day basis, a weekly basis, and we're intentional about it. And we're not trying to create fear, because sometimes those who may not be from our culture, our ethnicity, be of our race, our gender, sometimes when they hear that someone else seemingly is going to be in the desired positions of leadership, they become fearful of that. And to me, living through an era of affirmative action, while the courts were trying to level the playing field, it created distrust. There were people who felt that when one person succeeds, that person succeeds at the failure of another. And so what I have tried to demonstrate over time through my actions, my mother taught me something else. She said, you can make your mouth say anything, but people will judge you by your actions, what it is that you do. And so when I come to work every day, my staff, I hope they will tell you that I'm committed to advancing all people. In the world that we live in now, where we have people from the LGBTQ plus community who have been treated unfairly because of their sexual orientation or beliefs, I make certain that they have a seat at the table. That's why I have someone like Mark Espesso here from the LGBTQ plus community, who is here to remind all of us to be inclusive. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't have a seat at the table, how in the world can someone who doesn't look like you, who has never had your experience, encompass the greater good of what is important to you? So we have to be intentional about it when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We got to have all people sitting at the table.
And Mayor, I think you did very well touching on that subject, and for the sake of time, we want to make sure that the rest of our panels are intentional with their questions. So if you feel that your question may have been answered, go ahead and move on to the next one so that we are intentional about what we're asking for the best use of our time. I would like to go ahead and bring Anaya Mathis to the table. Go ahead and ask your questions if you don't mind.
And by the way, let me just say this, Cantana. I know you all have questions in advance, but because this is a dialogue, this is a conversation, if there's something that I say or have said that wasn't clear, I'm okay with you asking a question that's not on the paper, that we did not intend to ask tonight, but if I pique your interest and it's important enough to you. So don't feel that we have to follow a script. This can be dynamic.
You know, and I'm glad you said that, because I'm all about being dynamic. But being dynamic, if we could go ahead and let's get through the questions. And I see people taking notes, because I mean I'm trying to eat and listen at the same time. So if we could, we'll make sure that keep that opportunity towards the end for that open, continued dialogue as we move through. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. I ought to hear. So the first being, understandably, like, you are in an impactful position. How do you balance having your own opinions versus the opinions of the community when you're implementing strategies and policies? I know that could be tough.
How do I balance out my own opinion and not let my opinion be the persuasive thing in the room?
Yes, sir.
I've learned to do a lot of listening. And sometimes in life we grow. Things do change. They don't stay the same. And so I've grown enough now in my walk in life where I've had to change some positions, some things that I thought was one way, but through the human experience, I know, wait a minute, I was off there. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand what I thought. So, but again, in this position, the reason why we're having this dialogue tonight is so that this is a learning opportunity for me. It's a learning opportunity for you. It's an opportunity for you to hopefully share with me some things that will allow me to take that into consideration when I make decisions on your behalf. So my style is all about inclusion. That's why we have the MLK initiative here in Orange County to drive these kinds of conversations and opportunities. A couple of years ago, after the tragic killing of Floyd, there was a lot of conversation around the country about Black Lives Matter, and we created forums to have a healthy dialogue to see if we can learn from it. So that's how I try to ensure that it's not about me. Now, sometimes, because of my experience, I have to bring that to the forefront to try to help shape the conversation and the dialogue, perhaps for some who may not have had the experience with local government or some of the significant issues that brought us to this point in our history. I sometimes go back and I repeat what's happened in history, what got us to this point, to help shape the conversation, but not dominate the conversation.
Thank you for that. And then for my second question, because you kind of answered the previous one, what major impacts have you seen on the minority communities since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic? And how do you find yourself aiding those communities that were hit hardest from the pandemic?
We've had some challenges. The rollout of the vaccine and even the testing that was being made available, there were people in Tallahassee who were making decisions for local communities who had no familiarity with this community. In my 60-plus years, I spent the overwhelming majority of that time here. I'm far more qualified to know about this community than someone is in Tallahassee who makes decisions for us. And so, for whatever reason, they were not being inclusive. They cut us out of the decision. And that resulted in disparate impacts that perhaps were not intended. I'll give them that. In some regards, maybe they were intended, but I believe that they were not intended. And so we've had the pushback and the fight to speak up, to be bold, to say, wait a minute. The way you all decided to disseminate the vaccine in this community is not all-encompassing. It is not reaching the minority community that it was designed to do. Some of the decisions, I think, were made early on based on politics and not on the people, not on the safety, the life, health, safety, and well-being of the people. I'm a crisis management expert at this point because I've had to manage things from hostage situations, shootings, hurricanes, terror attacks, suicides. I've been through some stuff. And so as a result of that, I'm well trained. I've graduated from the FBI Academy, the FBI National Executive Institute. I've been to all kinds of schools to teach me how to be a crisis manager. And there were people who didn't have that kind of experience that were making decisions on our behalf that wasn't including us, which is kind of the personification of what we just talked about. You get the best results when you include all people. And so, yes, that we didn't roll the vaccine out like we should have. In fact, the whole pandemic was politicized. There were people in high places in this country who did not want to publicly acknowledge that we had a pandemic because they were fearful that it would have a negative impact on our national economy and that it would result in other business shutdowns and calamities. So they ignored it. They buried their heads in the sand. They were not true to the public about what was really going on. And so it got politicized early on along political partisan lines. But when I have been in the life-saving business, some of the people whose lives that I was directly involved in saving, it didn't matter to me that they were a Democrat or Republican or anything else. What mattered to me was that I was there to save their life. But it got politicized. So we have been fighting upstream now against false narratives and other things as COVID took control of much of what was going on around the country. At the time that there was calls for police reform and other things, there were mass demonstrations occurring during a pandemic that created a lot of challenges for all of us. So, yeah, we got through it. We're in a better place today, perhaps, than we were, but we're still not where we should have been.
Thank you so much for that answer, sir. We would like to go ahead and next we would like to go ahead and bring Hakeem Mitchell for him to be able to ask his questions. Hakeem, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you for having me and the rest of us on here. My name is Hakeem Mitchell. I currently serve as the Vice President of Black Student Union here at Rollins College, as well as the first Black Vice President of the student body here at Rollins College. And I know you mentioned this before of you being the first African-American within your position. So I want to ask the first African-American in your positions, do you ever feel pressure that you have to represent the whole Black community And if you do, how do you handle it?
I love my job, so it's not a job where I can honestly say I feel a lot of stress associated with it. I realize that I represent more than myself. I represent my family. I represent the entire community. But I've often said that I happen to be black, but I'm not just the mayor for black people. I'm the mayor for all people. And so I keep that in perspective when I go about doing the work that I do, and again, try to have a certain amount of humility. I have a great partner in life. My wife is a public servant who serves in the United States House of Representatives, the first and only woman to have served as chief of police in Orlando. She's now running for the United States Senate. So she was one of the impeachment managers during the Trump impeachment trial. There had never been a woman. There's only been 3 presidents in the history of our country ever to have been impeached, and she was one of the impeachment managers. Up until the time that she served as an impeachment manager, there had never been a woman impeachment manager in the history of our country. So when you have a partner like that, I have someone who I can bounce some things off of, and who she can bounce some things off of me, and we can help each other to kind of perfect what it is that we believe, or how to respond and react to the circumstances that we find in. And I realize that as much as anything, what I represent to people of color is access. Sometimes because I'm from the community, I'm of the community, I'm there, what I want to do is make sure that people have access while I'm in this position, so that they can reach out to me. They can touch me. They can see me. They can tell me what they think. I want the unadulterated truth about what people think about the job that we're doing, or the job that we're not doing, what we can do to improve, because we are not perfect. We strive for perfection, but we're not perfect. And so that's what I say to my staff here, that I want perfection. And the day that we think that we're perfect, that we're infallible, is the day that I think we would have exhausted our usefulness in the positions of the roles that we serve in. And so as I celebrate you being the first president of the black president of the student union there at Rollins College. That is just fantastic, because those of you here, you're going to be the first. You're going to do some things. I'm counting on you, because I know that you are the best and the brightest that we have. You are leaders now, and you're going to be leaders in the future. I look forward to working with you, hopefully, to try to ensure that you're a mentor, that you have opportunities, because when I retire in the not too distant future, you all are going to be the ones that are going to be making these decisions, and I don't want you messing it up.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, let's go ahead and bring Mr. Jaheim Morris to the table for him to ask his question. Jaheim?
How you doing? Can you hear me? All clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for having me. One question I want to ask, with your Mayor Demings, with your goal to make Orange County the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, do you believe that you and your all your teams that are working on that project, working together, do you believe that it will be like truly executed and done effectively?
Absolutely. I said something earlier that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So we have plans. Since I've been mayor, we have a Housing for All plan that was developed by citizens, volunteers. When we reopened after when we were in the height of the pandemic, it was the citizens that developed the plan for our reopening. The various task forces, we had a citizen safety task force. We had a spike in late 2019, we had a spike in violent crime here in Orange County. I created a citizen safety task force that created a blueprint for us to move forward of how we would address some systemic issues that creates the crime in our community. And so then once we have the plan, then it is all about the execution of the plan. I have hired, promoted, appointed individuals who have a history of executing plans. So if you sometimes you remember what I said, you can make your mouth say anything, but I look at your actions. So I have hired people who have demonstrated over time that they can execute the plans that we have. They can develop the plans, but they can execute them. So we execute those plans every day. We still have plans that are short-term, mid-range, and then long-term plans. Some of the plans that will be executed will not be executed by us. It'll be executed by others. The vision for Dr. King was that one day, his 4 little children would rise up and not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We drink from wells. My wife likes to say this. We drink from wells that we did not dig. I stand on the shoulders of people who was before me. You all are going to stand on some shoulders of some people who went before you. But while you're standing on those shoulders, you need to be pulling somebody up with you to the next level, and you have to be intentional about it. And I can tell you this, not everybody is with you. Even if they look like you, they may not be with you. Some people cannot go on the ride with you because they are there to create confusion. They're authors of confusion and destruction. They're not ready to be part of the team. And so I have a team of people, and if they're not ready for this team, we try to develop them. And if they're not ready, they don't develop, we throw them off the team. We throw them off the train. And we get somebody who's truly willing to be on the train and go in the direction that we're headed. It doesn't mean that we don't look for criticism. We don't look for constructive criticism. We do. But when you're an obstructionist, you're trying to obstruct because of something else, some other belief that you have that is inconsistent with what we're trying to do, then you cannot be part of this team.
Man, that's strong. That either you get on or get off.
That's the right way to say it. I say you're right. Moving. You either get on the train or we're gonna roll right over you.
I think that's going to be a good segue. We're going to go ahead and bring Shania Thomas to the table for her to go ahead and ask her question. And after Shania, we will have Mr. Vern Andrews. So, sir, be ready to be teed up. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. So my first question would be what has been your biggest accomplishment since you've been mayor?
One that I'm probably most proud of is the fact that we created a $100 million housing trust fund to deal with the housing affordability challenge that we have here as a community. And we were able to do that because of the work of a 38-member volunteer group of citizens who came from all walks of life. One was a student. Well, actually, several were students. One was a student at UCF. One was a student at the Florida A&M College of Law at the time. Several had been homeless themselves, and then some were in the real estate field, financial services. They came from all walks of life, and they helped to develop a plan of action. And so today, this $100 million trust fund, over a 10-year period, the first year we put $10 million in it, and it grows by 10% each year. So the second year, $11 million. Third year, $12 million. So we have put $33 million. At the end of that 10-year period of time, we would have put over $100 million in it. And the goal is to, at the end, create 30,000 additional affordable housing units within our community, in addition to what other developers are planning. So we want it to be intentional so that those units that we will build will be less than market rates, and the majority of them, in order to qualify to move into them, you have to live at have income at no more than 60% of the AMI, the average median income here within our community. And so that is something that will outlive my tenure as mayor here within Orange County, but allow people to get into homes. And we're not talking about recreating what I call public housing. We're creating housing stock that anyone will want to live in. These are mixed use housing facilities that have all the amenities that anyone will want to have where they're living, where there's commercial or retail right there where they live, where they can buy goods and services right there where they live, where it's close to a intermodal center of transportation. Also, where they have fitness centers, they have libraries on property, and all the other things that you will want to see, where they're secure, where we're investing in alternative energy sources for these locations. My vision is that if wealthy people can put solar energy on their homes, why shouldn't poor people be able to have solar on where they live, where their utility bill is less than what it would have been because of the way we built these facilities, they're energy efficient, et cetera. So that's what I am most proud of, that we got it done through the support of the Board of County Commission.
Very good. Thank you so much, sir. And for the sake of time, Ms. Thomas, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pass it on to Vern. Vern, if you could go ahead and come to the table and ask your question, please, sir.
Yes, sir. My one question to you, Mayor Demings, is what are your goals for the betterment of the underfunded schools in the Orange County?
So we get to work with the school district. Once the ad valorem taxes are assessed on property here, the school district is a separate entity from Orange County government. However, we do work with the schools in terms of the development of properties, the building of schools, et cetera. But the school board has a responsibility for the oversight of the public schools. However, Orange County is the major manager and operator of Head Start here within our county. And we receive federal funds for Head Start to ensure that there is the best foundation for our children from 3 years old that will set the stage for how they will learn for the rest of their lives. And so we administer that program through the Orange County Head Start program. And so we do interface and interact with the school district and create volunteer opportunities for students to come and to participate here in Orange County. Those who are in college, we have internship programs. We would encourage you to seek out an opportunity to perhaps do an internship here in Orange County government. And keep in mind, when you think about the county, we have some 8,000 plus employees, and we do some things that you may not even think that we do. We have healthcare professionals, medical doctors, nurses that work for us because we run clinics, we run the jail, and we have to provide for everyone at the jail, including their medical treatment while they're in our care and custody. But we operate the water system. So you don't think about it, but there are a lot of the enemy. Since I come out of this law enforcement field, the enemy sometimes tries to infiltrate the American water system to create things that will harm Americans. We have a whole staff of scientists and systems that work around the clock to ensure that the water that comes into your home that you drink is safe. They're PhD level individuals, master's level individuals, and you may not even think about that as something that you might want to do. We have a whole team of lawyers here, accountants, and we have a tree arborist, people who are experts in cutting down trees that we trained, who are certified arborists, and all types of other positions here within the county. So there's a tremendous opportunity for you to, as you decide what your career will be, to consider public service as something that you would want to do. And so we create these opportunities through field trips and partnering with the school district to see the work being done, to go out to our engineering labs and to see what the engineers do here within Orange County. And so that's kind of what I would tell you. The county funds many of the programs within the school district. For example, social services centered around homelessness, social services centered around treating the mentally ill and providing mental health counseling for children in our schools. We fund a portion of that in the schools where there are counselors who are paid for through funding that we provide to the schools from Orange County government. So it's a very robust system that we have of responsibilities in the county.
Wow. I mean, Mayor, go ahead, sir. No, go ahead.
I was going to tell you, we have some training programs that we're integrating into the system as well, where we're training people to do other jobs. Even at the jail, we train people in new skills, the job skills development, so that if they're incarcerated, when they get out, we want them to go to work. And so construction trades and other things we teach right there at the jail. So we're doing all types of things. And we have 9 children who are incarcerated in the adult jail. 9 children who've been charged with felony crimes because they did some pretty bad things. They didn't go to juvenile detention. They're in the Orange County jail. And the law says that we have to keep them separate from the adults, but they're in jail, being prosecuted as if they were adults. The youngest one is probably 14 years old.
Wow. Mayor, I think you really have touched on such a broad spectrum of the services in your leadership. If we could, for the sake of time, if there's one question I would like to ask you, rapid fire, what would you like for these students to take away from this candid conversation that will be able to spear on another conversation to potentially follow up with at a later time?
Be the best that you can be. We're dependent on you. We're dependent on you.
Well, that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, my takeaways that I would like to add is, one is to be intentional. For everyone who's on this call, who's on this candid conversation, I kept hearing the words intentional. Not only being intentional, but our actions need to speak louder than our words. So intentional, that our actions speak louder than our words. And honestly, something that was kind of covered but not really hit hard is for us to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That means a lot of us are going to be the first in a lot of rooms and spaces and places. And we have got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's the only way we can solidify that seat at the table. Ladies and gentlemen,
I mean, this is excellent, and I want to just tell you that. But someone challenged me at a MLK luncheon about 4 years ago, and they said those words. They said, "You got to be uncomfortable." And I decided my comfortable position was I was a sheriff. I said I would do another term and I would just retire. but I saw some things that needed different direction here in Orange County. And I got out of my comfort zone and I decided to run for Orange County mayor. It was uncomfortable for me to make that decision. So yeah, sometimes you can do extraordinary work. As an ordinary person, you can do extraordinary work when you get out of your comfort zone.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to a close of this candid conversation. I want to thank the students from Rollins College Black Student Union. Thank you for coming on out. If you have any additional questions that you would like to ask the mayor that we didn't happen to touch upon in this particular conversation, please do not hesitate to send those over. I'm sure Sam will be able to provide additional information. I also want to make sure I'm thanking the campus advisors. Advisors, thank you for taking the time. I was on campus once, and I knew the importance of having campus advisors that would take the time out of their schedule to be able to make us possible to be uncomfortable comfortable. So I want to say thank you, tip my hat off to you. Rhonda, thank you so much. The team at Orange County TV, thank you so much. This is only the beginning. Candid Conversation, Kaleidoscope series. Thank you.